Texas A&M. Jonathan Williams, touchdown, Razorbacks.
Collins is going to go at the 20, the 10, the 5. Touchdown, Arkansas. Throws a bullet and a nice catch, and it is a touchdown. And that's Edwards Pope. There's a fake. Irwin Hill's got it. He's got the first down at the 40, the 30, the 20. Irwin Hill cuts back inside the 10. He's going to go. Touchdown, Arkansas, on a fake punt down the middle. He's got a tight end alone at the 15, to the 10, to the 5. A.J. Derby, touchdown, Arkansas. And the Razorbacks are up by 2 touchdowns. And a catch. And that is Pope. His man fell down as he bumped into him, and the Aggies just scored. And it is a catch. 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, 59 yards. Looking to throw. He will. And a catch and a touchdown. It's Kennedy. One play, 25 yards, touchdown. A handoff, and I don't think he got it. He's been stopped. He's been stopped. No first down. The game's over. The Aggies have won this in overtime, 35-28.
I didn't fly to Dallas to make a positive step. I came here to win, and I think our players did. And to get that close and to not have it, we got to get our guys healed up. A lot of broken hearts. The good thing is these hearts can be mended.
You know, we did about everything we could in the first half wrong, and personally in the fourth quarter we played well all 3 phases, special teams, defense, and offense. So that's how you win close games.
In what was just an absolute thriller and complete heartbreaker for Razorback fans. I know that on this Monday, Razorback fans are still, in many cases, hanging their heads over the toilets. You can't feel good, but you can because you know where your team is going, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Texas A&M, for 3 quarters, couldn't get anything going offensively, at least by their standards, and then the fourth quarter comeback, the first play of overtime. What did that comeback and win show you?
Well, it shows me that they can take a punch. I mean, this is a young football team. They've got some new faces. Obviously, we've documented a new guy at the quarterback position in Kenny Hill. And I think a lot of their difficulties early on in that ball game were partially due to the fact that A&M hasn't been in close ball games this year. They've blown people out. They jumped all over South Carolina in week 1. And so it gets easier in that regard. Arkansas wasn't going away. In fact, Arkansas was controlling this football game, Dari. And A&M still fought their way to the fourth quarter, got it to an overtime period, and were able to secure a victory with young guys like that. I think you learn something about it. It's a character-building moment. Coaches love this type of opportunity. Oh, yeah, we wanted to fall behind so that we could work our way back into it. Yeah, as long as you win the game. And Coach Sumlin's going to use this, and I'm sure the players will too, to say that we're going to be able to go into some battles, we're going to be in some wars, we're going to be able to survive it and still get the W.
Through 3 quarters, if you look at that box score and you see A&M had 290 yards of offense, which was, I think it was like 95 fewer than Arkansas had. It was stunning to see that. What did Arkansas do through the first 3 quarters, if anything, was Arkansas really, that other teams can look at and say, wow, okay, so you can slow the Aggies down?
Yeah, you can slow them down. I think the biggest thing of it is that Arkansas was playing with A&M. We come into it, these are 2 of the more explosive offenses in the country, and it looked that way, especially for the Razorbacks. I think that changes the dynamic of the matchup, really. When you look at what A&M has been doing so far this season, they've been able to jump out on the scoreboard. They've been dominating folks offensively, especially when you look at some of the Southeastern Conference matches up. And when you rewind all the way to week 1. In this game, though, Arkansas was able to stay in it. And Coach Sumlin mentioned it a little bit. In the first half, they weren't doing many things right. They looked very much out of sync. Kenny Hill was forcing some throws. He had some inaccurate throws at that. And ultimately, Arkansas on offense did a very good job, as they have typically this season, formationing what the defense was doing. They would overload sides of their offensive front. They were able to create some gaps. Arkansas dominated that game. They just didn't dominate it enough to close it out. And that's the difference. You got to close to get the victories. Yeah. And right now, I don't know that Arkansas knows how to do that yet.
It was only a few weeks ago Arkansas had lost 10 games in a row. It seems like a couple of years ago at this point. As they go into a bye week here, how do you describe the state of the Arkansas football program?
West of Louisiana, you look at it and you say, to me,
it's north of Louisiana.
Well, north and west. when you look at it, it's got to be promising. I mean, when you look, if you can take anything away from a defeat like that, and you can even go back to week 1 with Arkansas, you're playing Auburn, and what happened in that second half, and it wasn't a collapse this time, but credit the A&M Aggies and what they were able to do in the fourth quarter and overtime. That offense finally got on a roll. The defense got some key stops, held them to 89 yards. Otherwise, it wasn't very pretty, but as Coach Bielema mentioned, it doesn't matter how good it looks through the balance of 3 if you can't close it out in the fourth quarter. They were incapable of doing that, but they're close. This is a different program this year.
You don't. So you said you don't deem that a collapse as much as an A&M.
No, I think you credit the Aggies in that regard. And again, Arkansas could have executed much better. You've got 2 penalties, one that brings back a touchdown, another that would have been a likely touchdown.
Dan Skipper on the
and I love that left tackle at Arkansas, Dan Skipper. I think he's a good player, and it's not just on him. But you take plays like that out of the game, and it's a different result likely. But that's not the case. Those plays did happen, and A&M was able to get the victory, and that might be the difference between Arkansas and Texas A&M this year.
Okay. So now we've got 2 more spots here. This is we know how much better Arkansas is this year.
Yeah.
LSU did lose to Mississippi State. How much do they get penalized for that? Ultimately, they're going to play one another. The question is, which team would you like on a neutral field at least, Arkansas or LSU?
I would like Arkansas.
You would.
And here's why. And the big piece of that is that LSU is a team in transition. Arkansas knows exactly who they are. And everybody thought, including myself coming into the season, that wasn't going to be enough. That you can't run the way that they run their offense in this conference with the advent of spread formations, with the advent of dual threat quarterbacks, that you can continually run behind double teams and just a big offensive front. That's Big Ten football. It just doesn't work that way. Arkansas is explosive, and we saw what they were able to do versus the Texas A&M offense last week, virtually shutting them down, certainly derailing what was otherwise a juggernaut offensively. So Arkansas, who has not won a West Division game, I get that.
They're 0-2 in conference
and
this
they're
year.
0-2 in the conference. But I think that they know what they have, and they're building and progressing.
All right, now for the ball game, these folks have built their lives around. They've waited a long time, waited generations to see if Ole Miss can translate hope into belief, into victory. Moral victories will not do today, but again, this is old territory for the Tide, walking here as favorites with a big target on their back.
For us, it's our season right here. We have high expectations for this season, and playing Bama is where it all starts.
This is make it or break it. Obviously, we want to get to the end of the road where we want to be, and to get there, we have to go through Ole Miss.
What people expect of Mississippi football is no more, okay, that's an easy win. You have to come in and play your best against us, or we're going to beat you.
You have to overcome a lot of adversity, in our league when you play on the road, and this is a very good team, so this is going to be a very challenging game.
These folks believe Mr. Pollack has weighed in. He likes a close Alabama victory. Mr. Howard.
I think the biggest difference in this game is going to be the quarterback play. I don't know if I trust Bo Wallace. Blake Sims, big game on the road in the SEC, but I still think Bo Wallace turns the ball over. I have Alabama in a close one.
Alabama in a close one.
I'll make mine real quick. I just have had an amazing time here at the Grove. We've wanted to be here. It is an honor to be here. And I think this game is going to be great. It's going to be competitive. But Alabama is going to win very, very close.
Katie, your turn.
Are you ready?
Listen.
Rebel Red!
Who'd you pick?
I picked Ole Miss. Come on.
Miss. Listen. All right. Listen, I've been here. I've been at ESPN 27 years, and I've always wanted to come to this place, the Grove. It's the most beautiful place I've ever been. Look at these great people. They are beautiful girls, great campus, and everything else. I want the Grove to hear this pick. Shh. Katie?
Yes, sir.
You like music? Well,
a bit.
Let's hear this song then. music. I couldn't do this to these great people. No. Forget about it. Give me the head.
She don't want anything to do with what's wrong, Kelsey.
No, she don't have to leave.
What Alabama did not do Saturday in Oxford. 2 fourth-quarter turnovers by the Tide, 13 unanswered points by Ole Miss over the final 5.5 minutes. It's the first loss this season for Bama, but they're third in their last 7 games. Nick Saban, Monday.
You know, it's important when you play in difficult games against good opponents on the road that you finish plays, that you finish drives, that you finish the game. Whether it be on offense, defense, or special teams. And, you know, we did not do that very well in this game. Turned the ball over the last 2 times we had it. Had very costly penalties. Made a couple mental errors on defense. And, you know, when you play against good teams in tough situations, it's difficult to overcome. So the question now becomes the same thing that I said after the game. You know, how do you respond to a loss? And everybody's got to ask themselves the questions from the coaches right on down, starting with me. You know, who's making this team better? I'm talking about how you affect other people, how you help other people play better, how you help other people get better, how we get more players involved in being able to play, you know, winning football. We have made more emphasis on ball security and getting turnovers this year than I can ever remember in all the time I've been a coach. And we continue to not carry the ball correctly and turn the ball over. And we have not been able to attack the football well enough when we play defense and on special teams to create turnovers. So this is something that we'll continue to emphasize. I think if we continue to have issues in these areas, we have other people that are more capable because ball security is of utmost importance. In the kicking game especially, I know guys want to make plays, all right, but it's our ball. All right, we just stop them on a punt return, and we get a punt return. All right, so it's a great plus if we can gain 10, 12 yards like we got a first down on the return. Same thing with field position on a kickoff return. But there's nothing more important than ball security because we lose a possession if we don't take care of the football. So, and that's been emphasized and will continue to be emphasized so that, you know, hopefully we can reverse this trend of, you know, a negative turnover ratio every week. Really, we played pretty decent except for they had like over 80 yards on 2 big plays. And those 2 big plays, one was a 34, 35-yard touchdown pass, where we didn't play the post properly. And the other one was a mental error on defense where they put trips into the boundary, 3 receivers into the boundary, and just run them all down the field on a fastball play. All right, you know, and we didn't adjust like we were supposed to, and the tight end catches the ball for 50 yards. And the last play on 3rd and 11, you know, it really wasn't a hard play for us to make. All right, and we just didn't play it correctly. So, but, you know, other than that, we have to continue to get better because those are the plays that kill you, explosive plays, and we can't give those plays up. It doesn't do any good to play 60-some plays in a game and then 2 bad ones. We've got to play them all good and do the right thing so that we don't give up those big plays.
There are a lot of stats that Alabama typically leads this conference in. This is one they have no desire to lead the league in, but they do. Offensive penalties. No team has committed more than Alabama's 24 penalties on the offensive side of the ball. Compared to its last title season of 2012, Alabama's committed 3 times as many turnovers and already 14 more penalties. Turnovers, again, 2 fourth-quarter turnovers cost them in this game, killed the comeback, led to a short field on the other one. What ultimately beat Alabama Saturday in watching that game?
Just what you said, timely turnovers. There's no doubt about it. The game was still in hand. They were, even on the last drive, they had a chance to go down and win it. But it was huge. Ole Miss flipped the momentum. It was 17-17. They kick off. All of a sudden, they get the ball back. Unbelievable. Crowd's back in the game. And all of a sudden, there's silence in it a little bit. They're coming down the field. They have a chance to score, and they get the turnover. He said in his press conference, there's nothing more devastating to a team than turnovers.
I would say, two other contributing factors would be the field position battle and what they lost or what they gave up in special teams. You look at that first scoring drive for Ole Miss. They played on basically a 50-yard field on their 4 scoring drives. The average starting point on their minus 48-yard line. That's pretty sporty field position when you think about it. And then the other was negative yardage plays on offense, and we just saw the graphic on the penalties, and those are drive killers, but they also back you up. They get you off schedule on offense. You're playing on the road. We talked about this offensive juggernaut for Alabama, but you start getting negative yardage plays, and credit the Ole Miss defense, generating tackles for loss, but also shooting yourself in the foot, holding penalties, false starts, and next thing you know, you're behind in the chains. That allows the defense to get ahead now, regardless of what you're trying to accomplish on the previous downs, and especially if you start out a series that way.
All right, so now you're Nick Saban, coach, put you in the coaching shoes again there. What's the message you have to convey to your football team after what we just saw going into Fayetteville?
I think mental errors, he pointed out, I think they're huge. If you look at their defense, you're seeing things that are uncharacteristic. You're seeing receivers still run down the field. Evan Ingram dropped a touchdown pass and he was wide open. That's very uncharacteristic of their defense. I think it's mental errors. You talk about penalties. Penalties are just usually mental lapses. So I think the mental errors is one thing. And then the other thing that they're not doing that they've done over the years, they're not creating turnovers. If you go back to 2012, at the same point in time in the season, they had created 15 turnovers. Up to date right now, they're last in the league. They've got 5.
Mine would be, you got to turn the page. I mean, you learn from this, but you have to turn the page. And we saw the hangover from the Iron Bowl a season ago, and you've got a couple of weeks, over a month to get your mind right, and yet somehow or other it made it into the Sugar Bowl in that regard, and so you dropped the game to Oklahoma. I would have to say that there's a lot of division games yet to be played. Yeah. They need to figure out how to let this thing go. You got to bury this loss and go on to the next game.
Real quick, where do you see them in the Western picture right now?
They're in the middle of it still, I think. There's enough games yet for them to play, and when you look at who they've got coming to Tuscaloosa, you get Auburn at home, you get Mississippi State at home. I think that you look at the West,
you say they're right in the middle of the race to win it, or they're in the middle of the West, literally?
I think they're in the middle of the race to win it. I wouldn't rank them in the middle of the division.
Had to clarify.
That's an important clear.
Don't bury these guys. Don't bury these guys. I mean, if you go back to 2012, they got beat by A&M late in the season. Yeah. Play for the national championship.
That's exactly. By all accounts, the last 9 days or so have been hellish for Arkansas left tackle Dan Skipper. His tripping call in the second half of Arkansas's game against A&M brought back a long run that had the Hogs a yard from the end zone. Razorbacks didn't score. Aggies won. Brett Bielema making a change.
I'm sure a lot of you probably saw, we changed Dan's number to 63, and I'm not trying to hide a 6'10", 325-pound guy. Everybody knows it's Dan Skipper, but I think after having conversations with him and some people involved in the decisions that happen on game day, we just felt that this was kind of going to be a rebirth for him, just to, hey, I played a certain way in a certain style during my career here. Now let's take the good of 76. Let's move him forward. Let's leave some of the things in the past that's brought negativity towards it, and let's move forward with a new number, and that's kind of what we're doing there. I think 63 and 61 were open without anybody having to switch, and that's why I went with it. I actually kind of had it on the flight home. One of the biggest challenges I have as a head coach is trying to get inside the mind of an 18 to 22-year-old young man and what can make them move forward. I think if we wanted to dwell in the negativity, you can do that, or you can have an opportunity of learning and move forward. So I pitched it at Sam first. Sam seemed to think it was all right. I threw it at Dan. I said, no means you got to. I didn't. It's not a mandate by head coach. I really believe that when you have something to offer a young man, if you put it in the right way, that it's not a dictatorship. It comes across the right way. So I said, this is something I'm thinking about doing. You let me know. And after we had the conversation, he's like, Coach, I'm really open to it. I said, well, let me get a few numbers. Let's talk some options. I actually called home to his mom and dad just because I think Bridget and Ken Skipper are a huge part of who number 76, now 63 was, and I knew he'd count on him. I actually called Mom because I knew that's where he'd probably call first. And we have a great relationship, and she kind of liked the idea as well, so it was kind of full speed ahead.
It's one of those things, as if Dan Skipper didn't feel bad enough, right? He's got many a fan and many an idiot saying ridiculous and unnecessary things to him, his family, and so on and so forth. How difficult is it? And it's even different now than when you were playing at Georgia, but how difficult is it with the fan bases and the passion in this league to be an athlete in it and to be a star in it?
Well, first thing is you appreciate the fan support.
Of course.
And by and large, it's very positive. Idiot is a great word, Dari, and unfortunately there's a lot of them, and they have cell phones and they can tweet idiotic things. And frankly, I think the Arkansas fan base, if these folks are truly Arkansas fans, they need to kind of take a good, hard, long look in the mirror and recognize what it is that they've done, and now the lengths to which a head coach has now gone to kind of insulate or deter some of these issues that his 6'10", 325-pound left tackle is going through. I think it's absurd and it's embarrassing, I think, if you're an Arkansas fan, if members among your fan base are actually creating this scenario.
And we're not criticizing the Arkansas fan base. We're criticizing the ones who
whoever the idiots are that are doing that.
As a head coach, what do you make of Bielema's decision to change the number? He said everybody's going to know it's him. He's just wearing a different number, but it's almost like turning the page on something bad. What are some other ideas and ways that you help a kid when he's hearing it like he is? Or a coach, you've got it while you're trying to deal with it yourself, quite frankly.
Well, Dar, first of all, I like what Brett said because he's attempting to do something that he thinks might help, and that's the number one thing. Your job as a head football coach, among so many other things, but your number one priority when you're sitting in the living room of a young man, you're telling that parent and that student athlete, I'm going to do everything in my power to take care of you, to give you the greatest experience on the planet. Then all of a sudden they come to school and you get, as you guys said, you get some idiots out there that think that, they can say and do what they want. They don't realize this is an 18-year-old kid, and these kids are just like anybody else. The bottom line is the fans out there, that's what makes college football great, but there's a few of them out there that go way over the line, and it's the coach's job to try to protect the student athlete.
It's so counterproductive. I mean, there really is. How much distraction now has been wasted? The fact that we're even talking about it's ridiculous when you should be preparing for Alabama. Instead, you're trying to get this kid, your left tackle's mind right to play a very big ball game, and you're still trying to get a conference victory. And instead, you're dealing with stuff like this.
And while bye weeks are always welcome after that game, and especially for him, you probably just wish you didn't have it. You could have played, and you could have played next.
Arkansas leads the league in rushing, and a huge part of that is thanks to junior running back Jonathan Williams. He's fourth in the league in yards per carry and averaging nearly 100 yards per game. And now we welcome in Jonathan Williams. We always appreciate you sharing your time with us, and you guys are coming off of a bye week, so you've had an extra week to really digest that Texas A&M game. How is your team rebounding to that overtime loss?
We're rebounding pretty well. It's good that we had a week off. We got to put that game behind us and got to rest up a little bit. When you play those SEC games, they're pretty physical. So, that was something that we really got out of the bye week. We got to rest our bodies and we got to put that game behind us.
Well, you've really cemented yourself as one of the running backs in a stable of backs. So when you're going into a game, how much do you know about the amount of carries you're really going to receive?
You really don't. You go in and, throughout the week you try to prepare for whatever comes. And, like you said, we have a stable of running backs here that all play well. And, pretty much whoever has the hot hand is going to get the carry. So, you just go into the game and prepare as much as you can. And just, when the ball comes your way, you try to do what you can with it. What's that running back room like? I bet you guys have a lot of inside jokes. Yeah, we have a lot of jokes. It's a lot of fun in that room, but it's a lot of work as well. Well, against Texas A&M, your left tackle, Dan Skipper, he had a couple of penalties, and one of which actually canceled out what would have been a really long gain for you and received a lot of negative scrutiny on social media. How have you guys rallied around him as a team to kind of show that support? He's a tough guy on and off the field. So he's a guy that wasn't really bothered by everything that he was hearing. I saw him actually on Monday walking to class, and he looked a little down. And I walked up to him and told him I loved him, and he had a big smile on his face. And we just rallied around him. He had a tough game that week, but he's somebody that we're going to need throughout the rest of the season. He's somebody that really helps this offense go, and we just have to get him back on track.
Well, it's good to hear that you're picking each other up, because next up you've actually got Alabama. So it's the SEC's leading rushing team against the best rush defenders. So do you feel like you guys have the leverage in this matchup?
We're a very confident football team. We know Alabama is a good team, and I think they're ranked 7 right now. And we're going to prepare like we do every week, and we're going to have a great week of practice and go out there on the field Saturday and do well.
Well, Alabama was actually upset by Ole Miss this week. How much of that game were you actually able to take in?
I was able to watch a good amount of it. We had a bye week this week, so Saturday was kind of, a chilling, relaxed day, and I watched a lot of college football, and that was definitely a game that I tuned into. All
right, South Carolina, Alabama, and A&M, they all went down. Did you have a favorite game?
They're all SEC games, so those 3 games were definitely exciting to watch. Maybe just the Alabama-Ole Miss game, just because Alabama's our next opponent, and we still have Ole Miss to play as well. So A&M and South Carolina are teams that we don't have to worry about anymore the rest of the season.
Do you feel like Alabama will have something to prove coming off of that loss?
I'm sure they feel that way, the same way we feel about, trying to prove, ourselves after losing to A&M. So it's definitely going to be a good matchup.
I read an interesting story about you and the fact that your family was actually dealing with an eviction at the same time that you were committing yourself to Arkansas to play football. How much do some of the issues that you've had to deal with, the adversity off the field, really drive you on it?
It definitely has, and I'm somebody that's driven on and off the field no matter what the circumstances are, but my family is something that really drives me, and going through that with them is something that has made me tougher on and off the field.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Jonathan. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
As Alabama recovers from its loss at Mississippi, Arkansas hopes to thrive from its extra week of preparation for this Saturday's game as the Tide visit Fayetteville. The Hogs haven't played since their tough overtime loss to Texas A&M. Seems like ages ago, really. And with Bama coming to town, that's just fine with Brett Bielema.
When I saw this schedule, obviously, I think I made reference that I know everybody in here knows it's been rated the #1 toughest schedule and all that goes into it. But the way it laid out to go 5 by 4 by 3, you can't draw it up any better than that. I guess somebody might want to go 5-3-4, but I thought personally the way that we like to coach, the way that we like to train, we really got a nice jump on Alabama. Yesterday was a nice, quick minute and 15, nice tempo, really crisp, really clean, high energy, very, very focused. That allows me now to make some adjustments. I just earlier this morning finished our Tuesday schedule. How we handle that will happen and adjust to our Wednesday schedule, but you would think we could be able to back off a little bit more physicality as well as a little bit of time to make our guys a little fresher on Saturday.
I never thought that I would be here as a coach in my lifetime as a coach, that running regular I formation plays and running the ball out of regular 2 wide receivers, 2 backs in the backfield would be the anomaly, all right, of football.
In the Major 5 conferences, if you have a team that averages 200 yards of football, running the football, and 200 yards of passing the football, you're going to win a lot of games. And if you just look at Alabama, throughout the course of time, during Nick's success here as of late, who's obviously they've had as much success as anybody, that's a stat that easily jumps out to you.
We have not played, I don't think, a dozen snaps of regular defense all year long. Based on the style of play that we see each and every week with the spread, kind of offenses, which I think are very good offenses. And I don't think just because they're spread, they don't try to run the ball. I think they're very, very effective teams running the ball that do this. But this is, Back to the Future is really kind of a good way to say it.
I did the research as well and realized that they had not lost 2 conference games back-to-back since his first year. So only time it happened is obviously the last, I think 2008, and then last year when they did it in a bowl game and the last conference game. So, whatever it is, however it is, I think the one thing you see about Alabama as they stand the test of time is, especially under Nick, is they're very, very good. Every game, there's not a game where they bring nothing but really good players that are prepared in a very good way and play extremely well.
This is really old-fashioned, hard-nosed, Bo Schembechler, Woody Hayes kind of football. And that's something that is going to be different, for our players and our preparation. In fact, it's so different. During the bye week, we spent a day on trying to review regular defense, that we don't ever seem to play.
With that, I will give a plug for Saturday. I think if we could, in all phases, anytime we take the field and encourage loud sound and any way to make this place as loud as it can possibly be, I think 5 o'clock kickoff, everybody should have proper motivation to get in that stadium, be loud, and have a lot of fun with the environment.
Well, the league's best rushing defense versus the league's leading rushers, Arkansas and Alabama. Who do you feel kind of has the leverage going into this game, Coach?
I think Alabama is built structurally for a team like this. I don't think there's any question. Just if you look at the way they recruit, the big inside players, the big physical linebackers, they lead the country in rush defense with 64 yards a game given up. I don't think there's any question that if they had a say in this, they would play this type of football team over a up-tempo, spread them all over the field offense any day. The other thing it does, it allows them to play much better pass defense because, as Nick alluded to earlier, they still have some coverage busts. They still have some mental errors. This isn't as complex of a throwing game down the field. It's pound, pound, pound play action. So I think this is exactly what Alabama needs coming off that loss.
So they've been waiting to play regular American football. Isn't that what Coach Bielema says? That we just want to run American football, right? Normal football. Well, you look at Arkansas, and you heard from Coach Saban there, and structurally, I agree, they're built to take this. And I think that would be the mentality of the head coach at Alabama as well, is to be hard-nosed, physical defense. And at the same time, there's been no way to replicate what they've gotten, so what they're going to be getting this Saturday versus what they've already gotten so far this season. And you heard him talk about, we're just going to be in regular personnel. Well, regular personnel is irregular now. Nobody's in regular personnel. Mm-hmm. You're in nickel packages almost all the time to help cover some of that ground versus these spread offenses that do run, et cetera, et cetera. Arkansas doesn't spread you out. They're going to bring you in. They want you to come into the cage with them and see if you're willing to go toe-to-toe with these Hogs. And they've got them up front. It will be whether or not Alabama mentally, I think, can transition from the loss to Ole Miss and get in that cage with the...
Well, I think the other thing that we really haven't even talked to on the show, but their kickoff coverage. Arkansas has a tremendous kickoff return team, and that's field position issues that can pop up. The
popped up Saturday
in the hidden yards game. They've got to get that fixed. That's kind of been the albatross around Alabama's neck, not just this year, but even in years past, is kickoff coverage. They got to get that fixed this week.
Well, the things that they're fixing right now, and interesting that Saban said he spent some of the bye week working on playing regular old-fashioned American football. What do you guys think about the attention that needs to be paid to the psyche of this team? Like I said, it's been a long time since they've lost a conference game and have to rebound the next week and be able to play a team that hasn't faced adversity. Coach, how are you handling this if you're in the locker room?
Well, I think they're licking their chops to get back out there and redeem themselves. They know that there were some things they did in that game that were very uncharacteristic of Alabama football. I think they're chomping at the bit. They don't care where they play. Roll it out in the parking lot and let's play. They got to get back out there and get a win.
And you think both of these teams, because you look at the way Arkansas lost a couple weeks ago to A&M, they're going to be eager as well. But Alabama, they're going to have to learn to turn the page. It'll be very important because there's nowhere to hide in the SEC West.
We'll see if they can go ahead and avenge that loss.
This one's got all the makings of an old-school American football matchup Saturday in Fayetteville. Arkansas hosts Alabama, two teams that both prefer the downhill running game, go head-to-head. It may even remind us a little of SEC football, believe it or not. Nick Saban, a great defensive mind as a head coach, can appreciate how this will be played.
We have not played, I I don't think a dozen snaps of regular defense all year long based on the style of play that we see each and every week with the spread, kind of offenses. But this is really old-fashioned, hard-nosed, Bo Schembechler, Woody Hayes kind of football. And that's something that is going to be different, for our players and our preparation. In fact, it's so different. During the bye week, we spent a day on trying to review regular defense, that we don't ever seem to play. But we will play it this week.
And this one could be really, really intriguing. Arkansas's run game against Alabama's run D. The Razorbacks lead the conference in rushing offense. Alabama leads it in rushing D. Bama's allowed just 9 runs of more than 10 yards, while Arkansas has turned in 42 runs of at least 10 yards. So Nick Saban talks about regular defense. Guys, tell us exactly what he's talking about.
Well, the Alabama Crimson Tide suffered a loss this past week to Ole Miss, looking to regroup in their tilt versus the Arkansas Razorbacks on Saturday. But, Coach, a little bit of a departure for the Tide in what they'll see offensively from Arkansas from a personnel standpoint. Nick Saban said this week, this is more like Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes type football, only 2 wide receivers in the formation. But that's not what Alabama has seen throughout the season. And we can look as recently to this past Saturday. Offenses dictating to defenses what personnel they have on the football field.
Well, I think people hear that, personnel groupings. What does that mean? And it simply means this. The worst thing a defensive coordinator can ever do, Matt, is get caught in a mismatch in terms of their guys better, faster, more athletic than your guy. So the idea on defense is to make sure that you see what the offensive personnel is and you make sure you match that speed for speed or size for size when you're talking about playing against an Ole Miss.
And so many spread offenses, and from a formation standpoint, making you spread the field, so you want more defensive backs in your personnel grouping on defense. And so in this instance, we have 3 wide receivers, 11 personnel, meaning 1 back, 1 tight end type, an H-back in this instance for Ole Miss, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive backs, Jarek Williams being your star position player in the Alabama system, otherwise a nickel anywhere else.
Yeah, and what you have to know on this is that, again, the worst thing that can happen is to match a linebacker on a guy right now that runs 4.4, and everybody in the stadium's going, what in the world are they doing? So this is a nickel set right now. They have the 5 DBs in there, but again, they're matched up speed for speed where they need to have speed and size for size where they need to have size.
So when you see some of these offenses, a lot of them run spread formations, and it's even beyond a 3 wide receiver set. Now Ole Miss with 4 wide receivers, 10 personnel, if we want to call it that, if we're going to count Liggins this time as a running back. Otherwise, it's basically an empty set, and now Alabama has gone to just 2 down defensive linemen right here. You've got 3 linebacker types, 2 of them basically playing on the line of scrimmage. You've got 6 defensive backs now in your defensive formation.
And what people have to realize is that there is literally a guy up in the press box right now talking down to Kirby and saying, this is the personnel grouping that's in the game. 10 personnel, 11 personnel, and then it's matched. In this case, as you just mentioned, you've got 4 wide receivers, 3 there, 1 up at the top. Well, the bottom line with that is I've got to match speed for speed. So in this case, the 6 DBs that you mentioned, it's exactly right. That's exactly what they needed to do.
And what was interesting in this instance, of course, you talk about matching personnel. There was a timeout. They had nickel personnel on the snap, or what would have been the snap. They ended up with the dime personnel in this instance. The 6 DB is this shadow right here. Otherwise, you've got 6 defensive backs on the football field. But the challenge this week is that for about 55% of their offensive snaps, Arkansas doesn't spread anybody.
Right.
They're going to bring everybody in tight. 2 tight ends, 1 back, and you see here only 2 wide receivers. This is regular personnel, or what used to be called regular personnel. You just don't see it very often.
And what it is you've got 4 defensive backs. So remember, we looked at nickel, that was 5. We looked at dime, that was 6. And now you're seeing what? old school football where you have 4 DBs and then you've got 7 bigger people. This is a 3-4 defense, but 7 bigger people to handle the run game in here with the perimeter people, only 4 of them, being able to handle the 2 wide receivers in the set.
And what's so interesting about this is that you hear Nick Saban talk about his defense has only seen about a dozen snaps in regular personnel. They're going to get a heavy dose of it this Saturday in the Arkansas rushing attack.
Well, the Tide offense, so effective 2 weeks earlier against Florida, held in check last Saturday to some degree. 396 total yards, just 17 points against a very good Ole Miss defense. Not good enough for A.J. McCarron, though.
I think one of the things this team is lacking that hurts them the most is not having the true leaders like we had last year. And guys that could, when things go bad, hey, let's calm everybody down and pick it back up and go back north and get back on the right track. I don't know if that's Lane doing that or if Coach Saban's going to, put the handcuffs on Lane like I've known Coach do in the past and on his offensive coordinator and kind of, we're going to be very bland and run this play and do this, and then we'll, throw it on third down if we have to.
Bill McCarron was on Tide 99.1 radio talking about, looking at this team from a leadership standpoint, from an offensive standpoint. You agree with what he said?
We're going to find out about leadership, because I don't know that Alabama has the mental makeup to deal with this kind of adversity, especially going to play at Arkansas, a team that can beat them down if they're not careful. The thing is, when you've got schoolboy superstars that are successful all their lives, they never learn how to bear down and grind during the week. They show up and out-athlete the other kids that they're playing against at each age group. Well, right now they're in a position where they can turn this thing around. But the way to do it is to treat the next rep in practice like their national championship hopes ride on that rep. Then the following rep, they do it again. Then finally they're done with that drill. Then the next rep of the next drill, they do it again. Now, physically, that's the same amount of effort, but mentally, it's exhausting. And for a lot of these 5-star recruits, they've never had to do this in their life. And we'll be able to tell against Arkansas if they did it this week in practice. That's where leadership comes in.
Well, it's interesting. Do you remember when A.J. McCarron got in Barrett Jones' face? Wasn't it at the end? Was that the end of the national championship?
That annoyed me. That bothered me a lot.
And so, leadership styles can be different. Some people can be abrasive and more annoying than other people. I go back to a story. Greg McElroy told the story on SEC Network the first night that the network launched. And he talked about after the 2009 national championship game, how Nick Saban laid into the team after the game in the locker room. Like, well, not just a celebration, like, hey, you need to get ready. One of the things that Nick Saban likes to say is that consistency in performance defines success.
Yep.
And for me, Trevor, more than these guys not understanding that it's making an adjustment to college and having to face tougher challenges because they face those challenges in practice against other tougher players. These guys just don't look that good to me. I think that we automatically assume that because they're 5-star that they are the best players. They're not the best players, and they're certainly not getting the scheme. They're not getting the calls fast enough because you can see the communication problems in the game.
And given the 5-star talent that they have on the team, given the coaching staff and the pedigree, nothing less than really an SEC championship is going to matter for Alabama. They got to get there. Let's take a look at who's getting it done. Brought to you by Wells Fargo, our live Twitter vote. Will Alabama, despite all the issues that we talk about and despite already having that first loss in the SEC, will they still win the SEC? We put it out there for you on the Twitter vote. Hashtag getting it done. And you can see right now,
my hairline's not getting it done.
Most of them right now saying no. What do you think? They still win?
I don't think that they do.
You don't?
No. Here's the thing. What they can hope for now is that they get into one of those tie scenarios where it would end up being the college football playoff rankings that define some sort of multiple team tie. But looking at this team, and actually I watched every play offensively and defensively with the coaches' film for the Alabama game against Mississippi. They're not there. They're not there. The offensive line isn't great. They made some plays because they have great backs. Defensively, it's a call issue here. It's a communication issue there. It's getting lined up properly here. It's not making the tackle there. They're not the athletes that we expect to see
at Alabama.
And Robert, I agree. Alabama, I don't think will win the SEC West. And the reason is matchups. They've got 3 huge home games coming up. Then they got, if they can beat Arkansas, they have to play Texas A&M, Auburn, and somebody else, Mississippi State. They get them all at home. But these are all
You folks think out there, no, they're not going to. It's really, let's see. Wait the final vote here. It's changing.
Telling.
You hanging chads out there. 60% of you say no, Alabama will not win the SEC yet again this year.
And you know who's happy about that is Nick Saban. He does not want his players reading how great they are right now because they won't listen to him.
All right, a few weeks ago, actually, it was last week. Now I'm getting old. I can't even remember that. We were talking about it, Greg, how good Lane Kiffin is calling these games for Blake Sims, right? You know, he would look pretty good. Well, not everybody felt the same exact way, especially a former QB for the Crimson Tide. A.J. McCarron, well, he felt just a little bit different.
I think one of the things this team is lacking that hurts them the most is not having the true leaders like we had last year. And guys that can, when things go bad, hey, let's calm everybody down and pick it back up and go back north and get back on the right track. I don't know if that's Lane doing that or if Coach Saban's going to put the handcuffs on Lane like I've known Coach to do in the past and on his offensive coordinator and kind of, we're going to be very bland and run this play and do this and then we'll, throw it on third down if we have to.
We'll go ahead and search AJ and bland. That's not a safe for work search right there. Ole Miss limited Alabama's offense to 5 plays that gained 20 or more yards. That's the tie for the fewest in a game this season for the Tide. However, Bama's 34 explosive plays this season, coming up the 4th most in the SEC. Lane Kiffin's calling the plays this year. Tides had more explosive plays and enjoyed more success downfield passing than they did last season. Nick Saban, he wasn't exactly on the same page with Mr. McCarron's comments.
I don't think that, we played, real well last week, for whatever reasons. I don't know that that's all leadership. I'm sort of responsible for all that, as we all are as coaches and players, to make sure that we're ready to play our best against good teams in tough environments on the road. So I don't know how AJ would really know, but I don't necessarily see that as the case.
All right, Alabama loses a game and their offense is bland. People are calling it a fine bomb, cow turd, all of it, okay? But you heard what AJ had to say, right? Do you give any credence to what he said?
I think he was out of line saying what he said. Frankly, you don't know what a leadership situation is unless you're in the locker room. Yes, this team has some youth. It has some inexperience. And there are guys who you would normally look to as leaders that are trying to focus their attention elsewhere. Landon Collins, for one, is trying to get a young, inexperienced secondary in order. Trey Dupree is only in his 5th game calling the plays on that defense, filling in for C.J. Mosley, who did such a terrific job for a number of years. And then Blake Sims, of course, trying to take the place of one of the most successful quarterbacks in the history of the school. You have got to make sure before you talk about what's going on from a leadership standpoint that you have all the details, and I don't think AJ necessarily had all those.
Ooh, all right, you heard that. Former quarterback on quarterbacks talking about it.
And I love AJ McCarron. I love him to death, but he was wrong in saying what he did.
Okay, well, let's actually talk about the game. Arkansas, we know that they can run the ball. Do they have enough hog power, I should say, to get past this Bama defense?
Well, they do. This offensive line is tremendous. They're big. They do a great job making moves at the line of scrimmage and adjusting to what the defense is doing. This running back group is as talented as anyone in the country. Both Jonathan Williams and Alex Collins have been explosive. They've had a week off now where they're going to be rested and they're going to be ready to take the next step. You would expect this team to play really well this weekend, but in order to be a big factor in this game, Brandon Allen has to play the best game of his career. He has got to make sure that there's a passing threat.
You're talking about big factors, a big injury. Can you Drake out? How big of a factor is that coming in for Alabama?
Well, it's a big injury. It's really unfortunate, and it takes the wind out of your sails as a team. But Kenyon Drake meant a lot to those players, and I know more than anything else, those guys are going to go out there and try to perform to make him proud. Kenyon Drake is an integral part of this team, but they're very deep at running back, and that shouldn't necessarily be too big of a deal moving forward.
I tell you what, you think there's going to be some NFL scouts looking at the offensive lines for both of those teams and running backs in Arkansas with a bye week? That is going to be pretty scary.
makes a man miss. Williams, touchdown.
Saturday in Fayetteville, the irresistible force that is Arkansas's rushing offense will meet the old immovable object. That's Alabama's run D. The Hogs have the SEC's top rushing offense, almost 317 yards a game. Bama has the top rushing defense, allowing but 64 yards per game. So there you go. What an incredible matchup this is going to be. We've seen Arkansas run at will all season long. What changes against Alabama?
It's a different defense. First of all, let's understand that. They've played Nichols, they've played Texas Tech, they've played A&M. This is a different monster when you're going against Nick Saban and the physical run defense they play. They're going to take it away because Alabama's defense prides themselves on being physical at the line of scrimmage and taking the run away. And when they do that, they're going to put the onus on Brandon Allen to perform on second and third down, which he hasn't done so far this year.
Say he's been a little bit untested when he has to come up big. What do you expect to see from him if he's put in that situation, and he likely will be?
Well, a year ago, I would have been really concerned. I mean, Brandon Allen last year just didn't have the confidence. At least it didn't seem like it. When you looked at the way he played on film, he just didn't necessarily have the fire and the confidence in his own arm to be able to make the throws. Now he's healthy. He's another year into the system. He's playing much better. But let's list a couple of quarterbacks here. Bo Wallace, Nick Marshall, Johnny Manziel, and Trevor Knight. The last four quarterbacks to beat the Alabama Crimson Tide, all four had miraculous performances. That's what it's going to take if this Arkansas Razorback's going to be able to stop the Crimson Tide.
You know, Bama, even in the wins, for the most part, they're just, I think we've been watching them thinking this is just, it's a different team, right? It's not quite the same team. You guys each answer this. I'll start with you as the Alabama alum here. What is it that you feel might be missing a little bit about this particular team?
It's turnovers more than anything else. Nick Saban praises it all the time. Turnovers and explosive plays. So far, this defense has only forced 5 turnovers. That's tied for the lowest in the SEC. And their turnover margin per game is 0.8 negative. I mean, so they're turning it over, and they're also not doing a good enough job of forcing turnovers by their defense.
Special teams, they're ranked 119th in the country in special teams efficiency. And for me, that's way low for a Nick Saban team that has as much talent as they have. They have to play better on special teams. You saw last week against Ole Miss, missed field goal, fumble on the kickoff. Their special teams have cost them more over than not at Alabama.
One more thing under the radar, too. They're 9th in the SEC in penalty yards. Another thing to talk about. They got to be a little bit more disciplined. Not something that you're used to seeing.
By the way, this is 50 years since Arkansas and Alabama claimed national titles. And on SEC Nation Saturday, they will feature that 64 season. And in the game, Arkansas is going to win the jerseys they wore then, the throwbacks. They won the FWAA national title. Alabama won the 2 major titles awarded.
When we lost the game to Texas in the Orange Bowl New Year's night of '65, it was awful feeling.
6 o'clock kick will be right here, right across the street here, with Alabama coming to Arkansas. Past 2 years, Alabama's beaten 52-0. 111-0 if you go back 2 1/4 games. But this is a much different team with Arkansas. They run the ball as good as anybody in the country against that great run defense now of Alabama.
Absolutely. This is a completely different Arkansas team. And we had the opportunity to spend today with the Arkansas staff and a lot of their players. And they have a fire and a passion about them that is different than their past few teams. And Brett Bielema really believes in his team and he believes in his players. And to win this game, they got to run the ball and execute. But I think they also got to get some big play action passes from Brandon Allen.
Number 1 run defense in the SEC they're facing in Alabama. How can Alabama's defense neutralize that rushing attack?
Well, I think they play their gaps, they play sound. They don't try to fight through it because that's when they'll be displaced and give a big-time run. So it's linebackers play downhill. Don't give them any big play actions because that's when this Arkansas offense can really hurt you because it's run, big play action to take advantage of you sucking up for that run. So I think it's play sound, play discipline. Don't do anything different than what you've done all year.
Starting center Ryan Kelly for Alabama and running back Kenyon Drake are out injured. The Ryan Kelly injury, I know a lot of folks aren't paying attention to centers out there. That's a critical one when it comes to their efficiency and productivity.
No question. Also because he's a leader on the offensive line. When you're a center, you got to make so many of the calls. You got to communicate to your guards and your tackles and your quarterback. And although Blake Sims is a fifth-year quarterback, he hasn't played that many games. So it is imperative that at the center position you have great communication, especially on the road in a hostile environment.
Number 9, though, Amari Cooper keeps on doing his thing. You talk to the Arkansas defensive coaches, that's their only concern.
Absolutely.
Number 9. Everybody has to know where he is.
They're going to roll up on him and play cloud coverage, which is really 2-on-1, and they're going to say someone else beat us, and that's what Alabama has to do. O.J. Howard, Christian Jones, DeAndre White, someone's got to step up and make these big plays because they're going to double Amari Cooper, and he'll make his plays, but I really think Arkansas is going to focus so much on him that they're going to neutralize his advantage, and someone else has to step up and really win this game for Alabama.
Brett Bielema has this program heading in the right direction. He's going to join us live, 10 a.m. Eastern on SEC Nation from right here in Fayetteville. We are going to get you set for all the games, all the latest news, injury updates, and analysis. SEC Nation at Victory Village here in Arkansas.
How will the West be won? Our SEC Saturday will start here in Fayetteville, where Alabama has returned to life on the road. Meanwhile, both Magnolia State heroes have proved yourself now.
Live from Fayetteville, Arkansas, welcome to SEC Nation, presented by AT&T.
A little damp, a little chilly, but red hot when it comes to high hopes here at Victory Village at the campus of the University of Arkansas here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. As we say, good morning, everybody, and welcome to SEC Nation. Joe Tessitore alongside Tim Tebow, Marcus Spears, and the one and only Paul Feinbaum with us here today. Here in Victory Village, where victory has been hard to come by. 14 straight SEC losses for Arkansas. But today they get Bama, and this is a team in Arkansas trending in the right direction. Speaking of trending, Tim's shirt, Marcus. The confetti approach to the swagoo.
They like it.
Fire. What do we have here, Timmy? Hey, listen, it's bold and you can pull it off. I like it. Big stamp of approval. Paul, you're looking fine yourself.
I feel Beatlemania. Paul is bandwagoning.
Brett Bielema will be here live, as will Arkansas legend Jerry Jones.
Your old boss.
Your old boss is coming to SEC Nation. Of course, so many big games. One more paycheck, Jerry. Just one more.
One more.
So many big games in the SEC today, including the one here. But the big news in the SEC came out of Athens, Georgia this week. Let's get right to it. Georgia star running back Todd Gurley has been suspended indefinitely. The school announced on Thursday that they're in the midst of an investigation of NCAA rules. ESPN and media reports say the investigation involves money for autographs and use of likeness. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution is reporting that he may not return this season at all. Keep in mind, you're talking about the front runner in the Heismanology poll. He was on top of the world. 773 rushing yards. That's 54% of the rushing total. He represents 36% of Georgia's entire offense. Of course, they have a big game today against Missouri. We'll talk about that matchup now without Gurley a little later on. But Marcus, you've been a huge fan of everything Gurley has been on the field. But this news now takes you in a different direction.
Takes me in a different direction. First of all, because we talk about right and wrong, and it's definitely wrong. You cost your team a chance to win the SEC East. It's these other players. We forget as athletes sometimes that we have a lot of other guys depending on us. And if it wasn't Todd Gurley and it was another guy on the football team, we'll talk about it for 10 or 15 minutes and that'll be it. But those numbers you just showed are indicative of what Todd Gurley means to the University of Georgia. He represents the university. He represents everybody that loves the passion about football. He's the premier guy in college football this year. And for him to do something like this and cost his team a chance and misrepresent what he should be representing, it's a travesty to me.
We'll see how this plays out with the investigation, if these allegations are true or not. He mentions the reaction of teammates. What would be your reaction? How does the locker room deal with this?
Well, you got to step up. The other leaders on this team, because Gurley was one of them, but the other leaders, they have to step up and say, next man up. Get in there, Nick Chubb, and do your job. Brendan Douglas, when you get an opportunity to play in the game, do your job. Because as a team, we will play better, and we will find a way to get this. And you know what? It might demoralize this team, or it might give them a chip on their shoulder. It might give them an edge to say, you know what? We're more than just Todd Gurley. We are a team. That's why they call us a team. And we're going to go out there and show people we can also play football.
You know, Joe, I think it opens up a debate that's gone on and on. But here's what I think. I don't think this is the end of it. I think the reason this story came out is because you have some sleazeballs out there who didn't get their way. And I would make a prediction you'll hear more names sooner rather than later.
Good. And who had the over-under for sleazeball references in the first block? I took 2 personally, but Paul's already got us at 1. All right, Georgia, each of the next 4 games now, when you think about life going forward, we'll see if Gurley is gone for the season. But each of the next 4 games are now away from Athens, including the Florida game in Jacksonville. They still have 2 games against SEC West teams at Arkansas, home versus number 2, Auburn. Arkansas likes the idea of life without Gurley.
Pig, suey, Razorbacks.
Pigs, suey, Razorbacks.
Jerry's going to be here soon enough. It's what's one of a kind about the University of Arkansas, brought to you by Dr. Pepper. All right, take it away. Calling the Hogs.
Right?
They love themselves some Feinbaum here in Fayetteville. From calling the Hogs,
Town, man.
From calling the Hogs to calling Feinbaum. This was an interesting week on your show.
Well, Alabama has not lost often, although that could change. But it was a brutal week on our show. Phyllis from Mulga, not happy when I was on the Colin Cowherd show. Colin said the Saban dynasty is over, that Gus Malzahn will own him. She didn't like that at all.
Ooh.
Hey, Cowherd, you are just... I don't even have a name for you anymore, except Cowherd. How dare you say that about Alabama? They lose a game. And they lost it to a good team. The team beat Alabama. But how can you say, after the dynasty took all these years, all these decades, one game is going to mean that Saban's dynasty is over? Bama's coming back. Bama has not lost. The dynasty is not over. Do you hear me, Cowherd? Bama's dynasty has just begun. Kiss my butt. Roll Tide.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Phyllis, they say here in Fayetteville. The dynasty is over. Well, the best part of that, forget Phyllis, the best part of that is your reaction to that.
I don't remember my reaction. I'll tell you one thing, though, Joe. If Arkansas beats Saban tonight, the dynasty's over.
Oh, man. Let me tell you something. Ask anybody who follows recruiting. Ask any coach. It's the SEC West is up. The dynasty's not over.
No.
This
Actually,
Alabama program
the
is
scariest
awesome.
part of that is a lot of that I actually agreed with Phyllis. That's why I'm nervous.
You want to be.
Had a visit with Coach Saban last night, as did Shannon Spake.
Coach, this week, leadership of this team has been a topic. When you look at the players who are going to be on the field for this game, what do you see as far as leadership?
Well, I think we've had really good leadership on our team this year. You know, Blake's done a really good job. I think some of the offensive linemen have done a very good job. You know, the thing about all that is nobody talked about it for the first 4 games when we were playing pretty well. You know, the fact of the matter is we didn't have a lot of energy. You know, last week we didn't play with the same kind of intensity that we like to play with. That is sort of a trademark of how we do what we do. And, you know, that's my responsibility. That's not anybody else's responsibility. Defensively, you know, Trey DePriest, Landon Collins are good leaders. So, you know, sometimes you ask yourself, where do you get your energy from? And you'd think in a big game, you know, we would respond and do a really good job of that. And, you know, hopefully we're going to be interested to see how our players respond, you know, in the game against Arkansas.
Yeah, speaking of responding, I've heard you say that you think people respond better when things go badly. And when you look at this offense specifically, how would you assess the way they've responded this week?
Well, we've had a good week. We've had a good week of practice. And I just think that, you know, maybe sometimes we had so much success in the Florida game, then we had a bye week, and, you know, maybe we didn't have the same sense of urgency, and we weren't as aggressive in terms of how, you know, we played the game. And I think that's something that we have to trust in the players, and we have to be aggressive in what we do, because that's how we've played best.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Strength versus strength. Arkansas leads the conference with 317 rush yards per game. Jonathan Williams, Alex Collins, they've combined for 14 touchdowns. That's more than any running back duo in the country. Alabama, though, leads the conference, only allowing 64 rush yards per game. The Tide have allowed only one opponent this season to rush more than 75 yards. ESPN, 6 p.m. Eastern. Brock Hewitt will have the call of the game. Big Brock joined the guys to explain it all.
College football has gone to a lot of spread systems all over the place, not here in Arkansas and not tonight against Alabama. Not going to happen. It's going to be one at the line of scrimmage. Let's do this, boys. Jim Chaney, offensive coordinator here at Arkansas, said they've got 10 different run schemes that they focus in that they're going to throw at Bama. Let's hit on 2 of them. 2 of the kind of the unique aspects of what they're going to like to do against Bama. Let's start with the wham play, Tim.
Absolutely.
Tim's going to be in the kind of slot position. You'll get into lots of different formations.
And I'm here in a shade technique. One technique, you play a 3-4 defense, I'm lining up, and this center is my focus.
And a wham block, and you will see this tonight, and a wham block, to simplify it, is what?
When you are influenced by the center, so you'll make this block, Brock, and I'll sit here and play you, you'll leave, and then I got the guy, the wing coming. So as a defensive lineman, I've already been influenced by you, the center. My eyes hadn't transitioned to this guy that's coming in to block me yet. It's a difficult play when you're in a shade technique because you're actually getting blocked twice. It's similar, it's a late double team is what we used to call it.
And this fullback doesn't have to be a big-time blocker. He just has to make contact and be solid in his position.
Everybody thought you guys were just a zone read team at Florida, right?
No.
So much nuance to this system at Arkansas.
It was so much downhill, it was so much gap scheming, it was so much power, and it was so much counter. And so this isn't a foreign concept to me and what we used to do in college.
Yeah, and I know you love their push play as well. When they get with these backs, and you're going to probably see, we'll see all 3 of them, I am sure.
Absolutely.
And they run that push play.
I just want to let you know that this wouldn't have worked with me being in a shade technique.
Oh, you don't think so?
No,
okay. Go ahead, Tim.
Yep, go ahead. So this push play is a power play without pulling the backside guard. And what this running back, Jonathan Williams, is seeing is he's seeing this Mike linebacker. If he goes front side A, then I'm going backside A and I'm pressing it. If he goes backside A, I'm going front side A, because the center and the guard are both having double teams on this nose, and they're going to stay on him as long as possible, and that's going to create this Mike linebacker. Do I go front side A? Do I go backside A? When he chooses, for Arkansas' sake, they hope he chooses wrong, and this running back can stay patient and increase it.
Now, Nick and Kirby on the other side, they like to play some inside technique. They'll go some 4-eye. They'll move some of those components around as well.
If you keep guys in gaps, it's stationary. 3-4 technique is built to take away gaps before the play starts. So if you get these guys in a position and they just playing blocks and standing there and not getting off blocks and shedding, this type of offense Arkansas runs will kill them. So
Single biggest key for the Arkansas run game. They have success with their 3 backs if they do.
I think they got to cover up. They can't let Alabama get penetration and get big plays in the backfield, and then also obviously hit play actions after they're able to crease a few of these runs.
Alabama's not seen anybody like this. The biggest key for them defensively?
Get those linebackers flowing. Get to the football, and these big guys that space eating up front, make sure that you keep these offensive linemen occupied.
Throwback game. They're going to be celebrating the 50-year anniversary of their national title here, and there's going to be some snot bubbles in Fayetteville.
You know who likes some snot bubbling run scheme? This guy right here, the head hog. He likes that run scheme a whole lot. Daddy ran a hog farm. Now the big boss man's going to be. You know, Kentucky and Florida in basketball, yeah, but there's nothing like hosting Bama, right? You get Bama to come to town, and you put that big target on them. And the big boss man, Brett Bielema, joins us here on SEC Nation.
When I got here, I thought y'all were going to have some bigger shorts and a shirt for me to do our demo in. With this big offensive lineman you got down here.
I'm sorry about that. That was a mistake on our part.
I think that was Brandon Allens. You were Brandon Allens.
It did look a little snug. I wasn't going to say anything.
It was snug, Coach. I'm the first to admit.
Brett, listen, it's a cold, damp morning.
Yeah.
Game kickoff's not till 5 o'clock. And what you've got going here, look at this crowd behind us here. Look at the energy and the sense and the feeling of everything heading in the right direction. There's an expectation now, Brett.
There is, and I think that's what we've been building to. I told our kids all year, the bigger you make the stage, the bigger it's going to get, and hopefully we're going to deliver tonight.
Coach, yesterday, someone in our meeting, they asked you about the run game, said you and Bama both like to be physical, and you said, yeah, but they don't do it like us. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think that the approach that we take, 365 days out of the year is we're going to put a hat on a hat. We're going to try to move people. We'll play a play-action pass game off of that, and I like the way our kids kind of impose their will during a 4-quarter game.
Coach B, you talked about needing to taste it, needing to get the prize at the end of the day. What you think that'll take for you guys to experience that today?
We got to take a little bit of everything we've learned. I tell our kids all the time, you earn everything. And one of the things that we've taken pride in is we've started to do things a little bit better this year, but we haven't done it for 4 quarters, and I think what we've experienced is definitely going to make us stronger today and hopefully come forward.
Coach, I'm shivering. I have hand warmers. I have long johns on. I just took a look at your feet.
You got flip-flops.
You're wearing flip-flops in freezing weather.
Hey, this isn't cold for him.
No.
This is Wisconsin days.
This is like a day in mid-July where I came from. So the one thing I always tell our players, on Saturday I want you to be, we try to make Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday as tough as possible. I want you to be comfortable. I want Saturday to be the best day out of the week, and I kind of try to reflect that by how I approach the day.
Brett, what did the Auburn and Texas A&M game do for this team now in this kind of a spot?
I think Auburn, first and foremost, had taught us that we could play on the big stage. I mean, I think Auburn is a phenomenal football team. Give all their respect. We did a lot of really good things, but we didn't know how to close it out. Came on the road, beat Texas Tech, but we came to that A&M game and really didn't know how to put it away. We were up by 14, scored a touchdown, got a call back, or got close to a touchdown, and we did enough things to take victory away from ourselves. And I think the part that our kids have really began to understand is they can play with anybody, and to play with anybody for 4 quarters strictly lies here and here, and I think that's going to be part of today.
Coach, after spending time with you and with some of your coaches and your players, the one overwhelming thing that I felt was a sense of belief, a belief in who you are as a coach and your players and the talent that you have and how much you like your guys. How have you been able to instill that culture in this entire team, in this organization?
I think, Tim, obviously you're a guy that played from your heart a lot, and that's where it all starts. If you don't have that belief in your own heart, it'll never come out on the field. I think anybody that played the game and understand that you can't fake confidence, you can't fake swagger. I mean, it'll end up showing up that you are just doing that. And our kids, I think they understand that to be on this level is one thing, but to be at this level and win, we're celebrating the 1964 national championship. You don't celebrate losing seasons. You celebrate legacy, and that's what our kids want to be a part of.
I like that.
You got those retro uniforms today, letting people think you're the most improved team in the country. Your quarterback is so greatly improved. Hey, have a great day.
Thank you
Take it all in. Enjoy it, Brett. Thanks for getting up early to be with us
tonight.
Little whoop pig.
Brett Bielema, head coach, taking on Alabama today at ESPN 6 o'clock Eastern. That team, that program's overcome a lot in recent years thanks to Brett and leading the way. And Kaylee has a story of another Arkansas person who's overcome adversity?
Well, Tess, among the scholarship athletes on the field, or maybe I should say in the air today at Razorback Stadium, will be patient spirit. Patience, inspiring is a word a lot of people use to talk about you, as you have performed at such a high level in your sport with a prosthetic leg. But how do you characterize the spirit with which you've lived your life?
You know, it's just so normal to me. I was born like this, and I've been this way my whole life, and so it's just totally normal. And it's so cool to see that it is inspiring others, and I just love that. I've been so blessed, and so it's neat to get to give that back. A birth defect left your leg shortened, and your parents had the decision to make to amputate your leg. So from the day that you learned to walk, you were doing it with a prosthetic leg. Do you remember that first physical challenge that you had to overcome and understand that you had to do things differently? Yeah, I can remember trying to learn how to ride a bike, and I didn't have the leg, I didn't have a knee, so it was hard for me to keep my foot on the pedal. So my dad cut off a golf bag little strap and tied it to the little pedal, and I just was able to keep my foot in and keep going as normal. So it was really cool.
And you've been going ever since. It was then gymnastics at age 4. When did the dream of cheerleading at the collegiate level become something?
I started cheering in 7th grade and just carried it out all through high school. And so senior year of high school, I was like, I want to do this, and gave it a shot, and so glad I'm here.
What was the tryout process like here, and what was the reaction of all of these people who are now your teammates?
It was very hard. We had to send in a video, and so they made cuts first, and we had to come up here and try out. And I think it was probably pretty shocking when I walked in, because people were like, oh, what could she actually do, And it was hard. So it's neat to have them all supporting me, and from day one they have been. So
how have you been able to motivate your team?
It's cool. I think they motivate me just as much as I motivate them, and so it's just neat to have that aspect of maybe I can push them a little harder, but they can push me just as hard, So it's neat. It's definitely a circle.
They've all got your back right here, Patience.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Joe.
Oh, great job. Patience is something.
What an awesome outlook, and I absolutely love her name too. Patience,
baby.
awesome name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good for you.
Arkansas getting ready for Alabama. They're excited here in Fayetteville. We just heard from Brett Bielema. Little Bielema-mania, and they believe some Saban touts in there, here or there. We got another special guest that I think they're going to enjoy. 50 years ago, Arkansas and Alabama both claimed national championships. The man who took it was one of the best here on that offensive line. Jerry Jones, live on SEC Nation when we come back to Fayetteville. They're hoping they have a lot to celebrate today here in Fayetteville. They always had plenty to celebrate with that great one. Frank Broyles, the winningest coach in school history, 144 wins. Also was the AD from 73 to 07. Kelly has more.
Tess, let's travel back to 1964. That year, Steve Spurrier debuted as Florida's quarterback. Tulane was in the SEC, and Ole Miss was the #1 team in the country going into that season in the AP poll. But it's who would finish that season atop the polls that has the two teams meeting today still at odds 50 years later.
Joe Willie puts the Crimson Tide back in contention with a strike to Tremble for a touchdown.
Well, by 1964, college football was struggling for the way it chose a national champion. I think in that era, the approach to the national championship was very different. Bowl games were considered exhibitions in some cases.
They selected national champions differently. AP had a champion, UPI had a champion, and then Grantland Rice had a champion.
In 1964, college football had two teams that went undefeated during their regular season. Both Alabama and Arkansas finished 10-0. The AP and UPI awarded their national championship to Alabama at the end of the regular season.
When you win a national championship in college, that's as big as it can possibly get. It's joyful. It doesn't go away for a lifetime. You remember it and share it.
But this national championship was selected at the end of the season. Bowls were not counted.
Alabama went on to play Texas in the Orange Bowl. This is a watershed moment in the history of college football because you had these two marquee teams playing in prime time when everybody was watching.
It's 4th down, less than a yard, and Texas holds Namath on the quarterback sneak by inches to make it a historic goal line stand and upset victory by the Longhorns.
When we lost the game to Texas in the Orange Bowl New Year's night of '65, it was awful, awful feeling.
Arkansas that year shut out their last 5 opponents in the regular season. Frank Broyles is a really hard-nosed football coach who taught great defenses.
Undefeated Arkansas would play on New Year's Day, not knowing they were playing for a piece of the national championship that year.
Marshall's looking for another big play. This time it's Lindsey in the clear on the right for a 10-yard pass that puts the ball on the Nebraska 43.
The last game that I ever had a chance to play in was against Nebraska in the 1965 Cotton Bowl. That was an uphill battle.
It's good for 10 yards, and the Razorbacks have a first down.
Arkansas really proved its championship mettle in that Cotton Bowl. In the fourth quarter, they were trailing. Marshall led an 80-yard drive. Bobby Burnett scored the winning touchdown.
Cuts back inside and carries a Cornhusker into the end zone for the score.
After their victory over Nebraska, Arkansas was named the national champion by the Football Writers Association and presented the Grantland Rice Trophy, creating 2 national champions for the 1964 season.
1964 was the beginning of an evolution to giving the bowl games the true significance that they deserved in the national championship selection process. Because in 1965, the AP decided to hold its final poll after the bowl games. And that was a revolutionary thing at that point.
I don't know that I've ever known or even recognized that there was a controversy. I wear this national championship ring. I was on the only undefeated team in this country after all the bowl games were played. The Arkansas Razorbacks were the national champions.
Who argues with you? Certainly Alabama don't, because they got beaten that game.
When we were at Alabama a few weeks ago, they honored their championship 64 team. Today, Arkansas will honor the only national championship team they can claim. Members of that team will be on hand, and it looks as though one member of that team has made his way to our set.
He has, and last night, many of those players from the 64 team, including Jerry Jones, were here in town. The celebration getting underway, the 50th anniversary, and always introduced as Cowboys owner, but today, Arkansas champion, Arkansas legend. Jerry, welcome to SEC News.
How about that? Let me show right here.
Hey, early happy birthday to you. You got your birthday coming up on Monday, but time to look back now at 64 and think about that legacy. Marcus, by the way, would still take a paycheck if you put one his way. We won't get into that anytime soon. But when you think about that legacy and how it still connects today to what's happening right here in the energy with this program, it's got to make you feel great.
Well, all of us have a perspective, and it changed my life to get to be a part of that team. You didn't know that you could do it until you did it. And from that point on, it went with me for the rest of my life that, boy, you can do it. It's not for somebody else. Go get it yourself. And that Razorback team inspired us. We went down and played Texas. It was our 5th game of the year. They were #1 in the nation. And we walked in there and came out victors, and we were different people from that time on, and we were never scored on again and won the championship. It shows really what inspiration means and can do. Tim's a perfect example of that in this game of football.
Mr. Jones, you've been so successful in so many areas of life, but what lessons can you say football taught you to make you successful in other areas of life?
Well, to deal with that mirror, to deal with your personal devil, if you can handle him, if you can walk out here, Arkansas is obviously a red team. When you're on the baby blues, which is about 13 teams down, the color of this jacket, you're pretty far down that depth chart. I've walked down to this field house and been down on that depth chart, and my goodness, felt about quitting, thought about not going that day. Man, it's going to be tough. Just kept putting that foot out in front of the other one. Football taught me not to quit. It taught me the power of using your mind. And, of course, if you have some success doing that, then you'll never forget it. Now, let me say this. If you walk out there and you're playing the University of Texas and the coaches grade you pretty good, your teammates grade you pretty good, but you didn't do good in your own mind, if you quit when you're 22, you'll quit when you're 50. Yeah. And that's why you got to realize the power of having a really, really great experience. And Coach Broyles and this great teammates of mine on this team, really, I wouldn't be with the Cowboys if it weren't for having that experience. That's no joke.
You see what I got a chance to be around for 8 years?
I do.
Every year. It's so good to see you. I want to talk a little football because you played offensive line. You've built the offensive line in Dallas that's paying some pretty good dividends right now. What do you think about this Arkansas offensive line and the attitude and the way they play throughout football games?
Well, I'm so impressed. When we had an outstanding game against A&M in Dallas, and I got a chance to visit with the team that night before the game, and I basically was really talking right to those offensive linemen because you've heard this, but in this case it works. They are your personality. If you're putting the physical on them right there, then the opposing team as well as your team thinks physical, and especially if the style is physical, and that's what they are today, and that gives them a chance. And by the way, that's the reason we're doing it physical that way. Absolutely. With the Cowboys right now too, and we've tried several other ways. Cowboys, NFL, that's supposed to be a passing game. Boy, we're trying to run that ball at them right now. We'll go with what the flow is.
And we heard that speech had a big effect on the team. We heard 4 or 5 people tell us about it yesterday.
Well, it was easy to do. I was sitting right where those guys were, believe it or not, 50 years ago, right there in Dallas, and I said, guys, you sitting in that chair. Dream, think big. You can be standing up here talking to somebody 50 years later and being a part of what you want to be a part of too. That's what this game really has to offer for not only the participants, but of course the great fans get to experience this thing. And charges them off too.
I grew up a Cowboys fan. I've always wanted to be part of the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't play for the Cowboys. I didn't win the Heisman Trophy. But I'm going to wear Jerry Jones' sunglasses.
You talk about the big swagoo? Yeah. This is the head swagoo. Yeah. I remember seeing him come out to practice. He had these nice blazers on. I go stand next to him. I say, where you get that from? You don't want to know. You don't
want to pay for it either. Marcus, he walked up to me one time. He said, Mr. Jones, said, those shoes have got to cost $2,000 a piece. I said, you didn't even catch one of them.
That's the great swagoo. Permanent great swagoo right there. He's got more swag than everybody put together. Hey, Jerry, stop by anytime. Enjoy today. Great. Congratulations on the 50th anniversary. They're wearing the retro uniforms today and the retro helmets to honor you guys. Yeah, it's incredible. And we'll see you at your place come January hosting the championship of the new college football.
We're excited. That stadium, that's a dream come true to think the first playoff national championship game right there at AT&T Stadium.
I think you're excited about it.
I'm excited about it.
I've got to make sure SEC Nation's got prime real estate for that week, right?
Well, I bet they'll have a good Come in with Arkansas and you'll get a good
6 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. They have some real good individual talent on this team. The kind of talent that works hard in the weight room and potentially could end up as one of Tim Tebow's. What are you doing? Marcus, are you there?
Freak of the week.
I love it. He's just getting down right now. I mean, he passed silly long ago.
Let's go.
Tim, who's this week's Freak of the Week?
Well, today's Freak of the Week is one of Arkansas's best defensive linemen. He's also one of the best defensive linemen in the SEC. But why? It's because he went from 250 pounds to 275 pounds. Look at the before and after of Trey Flowers. My man Trey Flowers can squat 615 pounds. He can bench 440 pounds. He can split squat. That's with one leg. Can split squat 335 pounds. His pro shuttle is a 4.37. His broad jump is 10.2. That's pretty good for a guy that weighs 275 pounds. Oh, by the way, he also has 4 tackles for loss, 3 pass breakups, 1 forced fumble, and 13 career sacks. This dude creates havocs for quarterbacks, and for Arkansas, they're hoping he gets after Blake Sims this afternoon.
D lineman in the Freak of the Week. Yes, I love it. I love it.
Oh, you could have used Freak of the Week back in 2003, 2002.
Yeah,
so he gets after Alabama this week. He gets Georgia next week, which means possibly no Todd Gurley, a headline story of the SEC, under investigation right now. The reports are out there. Suspended, will not play today against Missouri. That means Nick Chubb will get a lot of action. Spears, you getting hungry? I got 26 after the hour. They got some great food. I know you're always hungry.
Yeah,
you know who else is always hungry? Sports Illustrated's senior writer Andy Staples, a great football mind, but a great foodie too, who's come here to Fayetteville to show you this.
Every proper southern town has a Catfish Shack. It's a decidedly unfussy building with long tables and a huge deep fryer. In Fayetteville, Arkansas, that place is the Catfish Hole, and they make the planet's best hush puppy. I'm in the kitchen with Floyd Daniels. He's been doing this for 20 years. Floyd, show me how to make a hush puppy. So making a ball. We'll scoop it quick. Floyd, talk to me about this batter.
Okay, well, we started it this morning probably about 3 a.m.
All right.
And getting it going, it has to set and everything has to marry up before we start making them.
What's in it?
That's definitely a question for Pat.
Floyd, this is the Catfish Hole. We gotta make some catfish. How we do that?
It's real simple.
So this is cornmeal right here.
It's just cornmeal, salt, and pepper.
So this recipe you'll give me. I get it.
Yeah.
I see how it works.
Bring it over here to the fryer.
All right.
Get off pretty good. You don't want a whole lot of meal on it. And just drop it in and lay it out.
And how many catfish fillets are y'all serving today?
Probably somewhere around 1,500 pieces.
Wow. So tell us about the Catfish Hole.
Well, the Catfish Hole is a business that we purchased out of bankruptcy, and we built this restaurant and opened it in November of 1994. First of all, I don't even like fish. I love this catfish, but my mom and dad would turn over in their graves if they saw me eating fish.
Would they eat the hush puppies though?
These hush puppies are, people just like them.
So the recipe, you can just give it to me, right? I can take it home?
Oh yeah, I'd have to kill you though.
Can I just eat some hush puppies?
Oh, absolutely. Just take a bite of that. Now tell me what you did if your mama tried to grab that from you.
No.
You'd slap her hand, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
There you go.
You're not taking this from me.
Staples is loving that, and we're loving this. Herman's Rib House, folks. You like some Herman's? They've showed up to SEC Nation today. Let me tell you something. This stuff is falling apart. It's so tender.
It's really good.
This is some delicious Q right here. Timmy, you're getting after it right in the middle of the set.
What's wrong with this guy?
Now that's Q. Oh, that's some good Q, right?
That's my second plate.
These people have been out here since first thing this morning. We should bring them some Q there, Spears.
I got them.
Much more. I'm going to bring it down to them while we go to commercial break here.
Take it to
All right, big game in the SEC East. Todd Gurley, you understand the circumstances. We'll see if more news comes in. Suspended. Nick Chubb will carry the workload for Georgia. Number 13, Georgia. Number 23, Missouri. See how Matty Malk looks today. SEC East could be defined here.
I think it's really hard with Todd Gurley out. I think we've seen highs and lows from Matty Malk. I think he makes some spectacular plays today to help his team get a victory.
Yeah, I'm looking at it the same way. I'm looking at Hudson Mason having to be more influential in this game, and I think with Shane Ray and Marcus Golden, that's not going to happen. I got Mizzou to win.
I'm with the experts.
Here in Fayetteville,
No more Gator talk.
back-to-back 52-0 losses to Alabama. Arkansas has lost 14 straight SEC games. But these fans here believe. They believe.
Their team believes, their coaches believe, and I believe that they believe.
They believe
but
that they will win.
I also believe in Nick Saban, this Alabama team. They have a lot of good players, and I really believe Alabama's going to come play a good game. It is going to be a physical matchup. I think Bama gets the win.
Listen, we had the meeting with Coach B yesterday, and I loved how he talked about this team and putting themselves in a position. I just hadn't seen Nick Saban lose 2 in a row in a long time. Alabama.
Oh, Marcus.
I love Arkansas people. I haven't been treated this well anywhere. I only have one problem. I still own a house in Alabama. Alabama.
Nobody sees the upset here, but you see a competitive game with Arkansas here. They're able to control play count. Keep in mind, Auburn, Texas A&M, two of the highest play count teams in the country, yet they kept that down.
Meanwhile, in soggy Fayetteville, first sellout in Brett Bielema's tenure after surrendering the lead late in a mistake-filled loss at Ole Miss. Bama expects to bounce back today. They have hammered the Hogs 52-0 in each of the last 2 years. It's been a very comfortable matchup for Bama. Their stout run defense against Arkansas's run offense. The Tide don't have Kenyon Drake out for the season, of course. And, Ryan Kelly, their center's also out. But it's a manageable road test this time for Blake Sims compared to facing Ole Miss. Nick Saban's side, though, looking uncharacteristically unsound in some key areas. Penalties hurting them. Turnovers hurting them. They're -8 on the season. Special teams not very good. Christian Jones' fumble was enormous last year. The ex-Tide quarterback, A.J. McCarron, sounded off on some key things in a radio segment. Wasn't necessarily speaking about these things that I was just talking about, but just about general things involving Alabama's team and even some strategic issues.
I think one of the things this team is lacking that hurts them the most is not having the true leaders like we had last year. And guys that can, when things go bad, hey, let's calm everybody down and pick it back up and go back north and get back on the right track. I don't know if that's Lane doing that or if Coach Saban's going to put the handcuffs on Lane like I've known coaches do in the past and on his offensive coordinator and kind of, we're going to be very bland and run this play and do this and then we'll, throw it on third down if we have to.
Handcuffing the offensive coordinator. Interesting comments from A.J., who later said that he misspoke. And what he meant to say about leadership was there, quote, a vocal leader was lacking there. Well, you can imagine how much Nick Saban enjoyed this topic. Here he is with Shannon Spake.
Coach, this week, leadership of this team has been a topic. When you look at the players who are going to be on the field for this game, what do you see as far as leadership?
Well, I think we've had really good leadership on our team this year. Blake's done a really good job. I think some of the offensive linemen have done a very good job. The thing about all that is nobody talked about it for the first 4 games when we were playing pretty well. The fact of the matter is we didn't have a lot of energy. Last week we didn't play with the same kind of intensity that we like to play with. That is sort of a trademark of how we do what we do. And, that's my responsibility. That's not anybody else's responsibility. Defensively, Trey DePriest, Landon Collins are good leaders. So, sometimes you ask yourself, where do you get your energy from? And you'd think in a big game, we would respond and do a really good job of that. And hopefully we're going to be interested to see how our players respond, in the game against Arkansas.
The big favorites, of course, in Fayetteville, where Tim Tebow and the SEC Nation folks are. Tim got a chance to take you in this wonderful atmosphere here a week ago. Hey, Tim, let's set aside the issue of whether or not McCarron should have spoken out against his former teammates and his former coach and focus on the substance of his comments, that the offense was a little conservative, too much gear to Amari Cooper, and that leadership is lacking on that team right now. What do you think?
Well, I think the leadership is fine. I think this offense is fine. It's the number 2 offense in the SEC. And last week, that Ole Miss defense was the number 1 defense in the SEC. And by the way, this offense also had 400 yards of offense. But what they didn't do well was in critical situations, play situational football really well. They had 2 turnovers. O.J. Howard had a big drop on third down. They missed 2 field goals. And that's the reason that they lost this game. It wasn't because this offense wasn't productive. They won in time of possession. They won in total yards. And they won in the rushing game. This offense and this team is still really good. They just have to get better at situational football.
All right, Tim, thank you very much. We'll talk to you about the Gators situation in just a second. But Kirk, back to this. They may not face a tougher defense and a tougher environment than Ole Miss, but it is all good in the Bama world, or the edges beginning to fray there?
Well, I think A.J. McCarron, even when he was playing at Alabama, voiced some concerns about things changing from his freshman year when guys like Rolando McClain and Greg McElroy and others were there to his senior year when he looked around and he saw himself and C.J. Mosley is truly the leaders on one side of the ball and the other. He said that as he was getting ready for the NFL draft, and a lot of people got spooked and worried about that. So this is always a concern. When you're trying to maintain a dynasty, you always try to fight off complacency or try to fight off guys just taking it for granted. So Nick Saban has worked on this forever, and he continues to do so. And maybe these guys that are a little bit quieter in their way of leading, maybe all this controversy this week will allow them to say, yeah, okay, we'll show you. Because this is still a great team. Yeah. Let's not panic here and say it's over. Alabama's done in the West. They're done trying to chase championships. They're still a great team.
Leadership comes in different packages.
Yeah.
But I do know one thing from being in locker rooms. Unless you're in the locker room, you don't have a clue.
Right.
So A.J. McCarron come out with his comment. I think it's way off base, and I think you need to keep your mouth shut when it comes to leadership in that locker room. I'll say this. They missed 2 field goals, Bama, right? Yeah. They fumbled a kickoff. They had opportunities to win this game. It's not like they were horrible.
The offense scored 10 points, though.
Yeah, the offense did score 10 points, and there needs to be some things that need to work on. But remember, this offense, Kirk's believing in Lane Kiffin big time. Remember last week, he was doing fine. He kind of separated himself from the week comment, but that 10 points from a week ago. Yeah. But besides that, I mean, it's not like the ceiling's falling.
I like what Coach said. He said, where were these comments when we were winning?
Yeah.
It's easy to jump on somebody's back and pile on when they lose a game, but I do think there may be leadership issues because any team that I played on, the main time leadership would come into question is on the road, because the number one thing you have to contend with is weathering the storm, especially going to a hostile environment like it was in Oxford a week ago. Ole Miss, they were revved up for that game. You have to weather the storm. I don't think they had enough guys out there telling these guys, look, we got this under control. We can make these plays. I didn't see anybody out there getting in guys' face. Hey, let's go. No rah-rah guy. Yeah. Nobody to try to get the offense or the defense going. As far as Lane Kiffin, it was a tough defense. It's one of the great defenses that they have played this whole season.
Absolutely.
That's 3 touchdowns on the whole
going
year.
to that game, averaging 42 points, and like you said, he scored 10 points on the offense. But it was, give some credit to the defense too.
So who you got?
In this game, we picking a game. Did you pick?
No.
No one's picked.
I went after you. Arkansas is all stirred up. They're going to honor their 64 team. Jimmy Johnson, who was on that 64 team as a defensive end, spoke to the team last night. They're wearing throwback unis.
Yeah.
They're playing some motivational cards here to try to reverse the 52-zip trend against Bama.
I got Bama. Yeah, they bounced back there. I got Bama. Yeah. I think this game is really tailor-made for their style of play.
100%.
They love this. Exactly. So I got Bama.
Nick Saban in this defense struggles with tempo offenses and out wide.
Yep.
Who scares you out wide for Arkansas? I think this is perfect for them, and I think they get back to their ways, and I think they dominate this ball game.
I think they may struggle on offense early in this game, and then I think they'll settle in just because of the atmosphere. Chris said Arkansas is putting all their chips in on this one, so I wouldn't be shocked to see a little struggle early and then settle in and start to pull away in the second half.
And that's exactly what I was talking about. They have to weather the storm early. Yeah, no doubt about it.
There'll be many bigger tests than at Arkansas to figure out where Alabama is, where the offense is, where the leadership is. It'll be a weekly topic. Meanwhile, the Tide off a loss up the road there in Oxford. 52-0 is the score each of the last 2 years against Arkansas, which is honoring their 64 team, trying to play some emotional cards today. Throwback unis for the Hogs.
Oh, really?
Any chance?
No chance for the Hogs. I think this is the type of game Alabama's built for. Roll up your sleeves, be physical. I like this game. I think Alabama wins by 2 touchdowns.
Jonathan?
I like you, Dez. We agree on everything, man.
Yes, sir.
I got Alabama as well. I got Saban hasn't lost 2 games in the regular season in a long time. Saban's going to have the boys ready.
Good pick. Roll Tide close.
Close. Okay. I think it's close early, and then it gets big. I think Lane Kiffin, he doesn't have rabbit ears, but he hears all these people, including A.J. McCarron, questioning his offense. I think he takes it out today on Arkansas. Look for Amari Cooper to have a big day, getting back on track again.
What college football is all about, isn't it? Coming into these venues in the SEC every week in this division where they are so physical. And Brett's 100% spot on. If you're going to beat Alabama as Ole Miss did a week ago, you have to take it from them. You have to finish in the fourth quarter. In order to do that, you got to play some good ball in the first 3.
Adam Griffith to kick away. You saw Corliss Marshall, number 33, took the opening kickoff back 97 yards for a score against Texas Tech. But he is backed up here and will just take a knee from the big boot of Griffith.
Collins comes up, the leading tackler, and finishes off that drive.
Sam Irwin-Hill. It's a low punt that doesn't spiral. Instead, it bounces short. And coming up to field it and muffing that ball was Christian Jones. Arkansas claims they have it. And if it is, this is a nightmare week for Jones. Play action now, Derby. He's going to tuck and run and get a first down out of it inside the 20. Break that huddle fast and then snap. 2nd and 5, quickly out of the backfield to the fullback Walker. And Cody Walker has that first down, and it'll be 1st and goal just a few plays after that turnover. Into the end zone. Did he lose the ball? The bag is down as a fumble, and they are waving a touchback.
DePriest ripped the ball away.
The ball carrier fumbled prior to getting to the goal line. The ball rolled into the end zone and out. By rule, this is a touchback. Play is under further review. After further review, the ruling on the field is confirmed. First down.
Who has guided the way for the Tide this year? 2nd and 3. That was batted down by the very active all-SEC defender Trey Flowers.
Just a really, really good football player in every phase defensively. The sack numbers aren't maybe where they've been in the past. He's the 3rd leading tackler from that defensive end position.
There's that draw play that they go to often with Jonathan Williams, tackled by Reggie Ragland. Landon Collins was sneaking up. Now he backs off in coverage. They go with the slant, and they get it with Hunter Henry. Good-looking receiving tight end in his 2nd year. Toss play with Jonathan Williams. Cuts it back and does so with great success. And he's going to be close to that line to make. 2nd and 8. Allen. Diving effort that time by Wilson.
And there's a line that you walk every time as a quarterback. Do I take my shot or do I take my underneath? You see the one-on-one coverage here. You saw Alabama getting taken advantage of in the one-on-one. He decides to take a risk and pull the trigger. You see the underneath route. It may have scored right.
A little delay and a little bit of breathing room from Williams, who turns the corner and instantly gets that first down. That burst of speed for 16 yards from John. As they came after the punt of Irwin-Hill. Touched another Bama player. That was Smith, who came in and touched it. They're talking this one over. Saban's out of his mind, angry. You just can't do that, says coach. See if he was pushed into the ball or if he did it on his own.
And Cyrus is doing his job. He is screaming and yelling to get away.
First down, Arkansas. Such a dangerous weapon. He looked there first, but then all he saw was Trey Flowers.
It's tough for offensive linemen to block Trey Flowers. It's almost impossible for running backs. TJ Yeldon does what he can. He ducks in. He tries to get to the legs of Flowers.
Yeldon bottled up, maybe a gain of 1. Trey Flowers was waiting on him. Here's the toss. There's the block. And there's the score. Jonathan Williams. That was blocked. Williams capped it, but Bama leads by 1. Lack of experience early this season to be there and talk with him and coach him up. As they'll start on the ground with TJ Yeldon, who barely gets back to the line of scrimmage as Trey Flowers makes the tackle. Since 2008, since a run defense has played that well against Bama. Wow. Sims sacked. Darius Philon.
The two best players on this defense run a little stunt there, the tackle and stunt. They've done it for many years together. Excellent timing, execution.
And Derby's got the first down. A.J. Derby then hits the speed. How about that? Did he stay in? Touchdown, Arkansas!
Our week typically starts off with a phone call to one another on a Monday. Joe, as you had conversations and start to look at games and some of the tape and talk.
He kept his balance, and he did this. Oh, we got something brewing in Fayetteville. Since Brett Bielema has been named head coach. 3rd and 3. Sims to the end zone, touchdown time.
Defense in complete disarray. He's doing all he can on the very bottom of the screen, trying to run in. He is
past the numbers
to the line of scrimmage, and he does not get the timeout. He can see with Brooks Ellis, his linebacker, out. Discombobulated defensively. Couldn't get the TO if he sees it.
Quarterback sneak. He went vertical. I don't think he got it at all.
What is he doing?
He didn't even jump forward.
Well, he's saying, I'm trying to jump over the top, and it's not Kiffin and Saban we're looking for.
That's Arkansas's football. 3rd and 15. Allen. Pressure comes, survives it for now, but he's got to get a lot of ground, and he comes up just short. Williams met, stretches out. It'll depend on the spot. See. Not even close. That's a turnover on downs for the tie. Remember, 56 straight weeks in the top 10 for Alabama. Here they are at number 7, having lost to Ole Miss, but yet everything in front of them when it comes to the college football playoffs. And Arkansas, yes, they've been trending in the right direction. That's a first down for the Razorbacks. Hunter Henry, their tight end. Allen on 3rd and 10. Cross the field and picked off. What a play by Landon Collins, the All-America safety. He tried to go all the way to the other side of the field to Williams, floated it, and Collins made him pay the price. So that's it. Arkansas 15 straight SEC losses. Oh, so close. Just a blocked extra point away. That's it from Fayetteville. More SEC football to come your way.